Hello, welcome everyone to another Svelte Sirens talk. Today we have Scott Tolinski, the creator of Level Up Tutorials and co-host of Syntax FM with us to teach us how to build in 3D with Svelte. I'll collect any of the questions that you have, so make sure you throw those in the chat, and Scott will join us after for a Q&A session directly following the talk. So without further ado, here is Build in Svelte with 3D. Build in 3D with Svelte. I totally said that wrong. Sorry. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Scott Tolinski, and today I'm going to be talking about 3D on the web with Svelte, and specifically how you can use the brand new Svelte Cubed library to easily and quickly get up and running with high-performance 3D on the web. And let me tell you, it's way easier than you may think. In fact, I've been working in 3D now for a couple of months and have done so even in React. And let me say that working in a declarative way like you do with Svelte 3D is an absolute dream. So let's get started talking all about Svelte 3D on the browser using Svelte Cubed. So Svelte 3D. What's up with Svelte 3D? But first, who am I? I'm the co-host of the Syntax podcast I do twice weekly with Wes Boss. We do a short episode on Mondays and a longer episode on Wednesdays, where we break down web dev topics into easy language. We talk about things in a fun way, and we share our experiences in this industry. I'm also the creator of Level Up Tutorials. Level Up Tutorials is a YouTube channel that I created in 2012, and we are now coming up on our 10 years where we have over 300,000 subscribers and nearly 3,000 videos for free on YouTube, which is pretty amazing. Now, we currently offer 3 weekly shows on Level Up Tutorials. Our Monday show, which is kind of in the air, we do VS Code pro tips sometimes and some other different shows. Our What is Wednesday show, where we break into singular topics and distill them down into plain English. And then the third show of the week is probably the most important for you to know, is Weekly Svelte, where we talk about Svelte topics every single week. You can also check out my website at scotttolinski.com. There's a little mini documentary on my work on there too. It's pretty fun if you want to see it. So what is Svelte Cubed? Well, Svelte Cubed is a brand new library from Rich Harris, and this allows us to work with 3JS using Svelte. Now, we'll talk a little bit about 3JS in just a second, but 3JS is really the perfect way to work with 3D on the web because there's a ton of resources, there's a ton of examples, and just a lot of tools. 3JS is really incredible. Why do you want a Svelte wrapper for it? What's the purpose of having a Svelte wrapper? Well, with Svelte Cubed, it's a declarative approach to writing 3D, and declarative as in instead of writing a step-by-step instructions, create cube, put cube onto the scene, use this, you're actually using a more component-based workflow like what we've done with Svelte, and you create physical entities like a cube component that you can just throw into your DOM tree and have it render in 3D on a canvas. Now, this becomes extremely useful and easy because it takes something that's kind of abstract, right? I mean, when we work in 3D, you look at a cube on the website and say, that's a cube. But when you look at 3JS code, it can often feel like just long lists of instructions. Do this, do this, do this, do this. But with Svelte Cubed, what we can do is say, here's a canvas, here's a cube, here's a camera, here's a light, and there are these entities that take up space as components. And me personally, I really feel like this is a better workflow. So, Svelte Cubed, it's a declarative way of writing 3D. Now, 3JS. What is 3JS? Well, 3JS is the 3D library for JavaScript. It uses WebGL, which is a graphics language for the web. WebGL is a low-level language. OpenGL, it's really not the type of thing you want to write by yourself. In fact, if I was going to be working in WebGL at all, I'm probably picking up 3JS no matter what, because that's not something that I personally have the skill for. I mean, it's a lower level language and it's really intense. It's hardware accelerated, as in it's using your graphics processor to really make smooth performing animations. Like these things feel really good. You can even do things like virtual reality in Svelte or in Three.js. And it uses the canvas element, the HTML canvas element to draw. So what you're not having is you don't have a DOM element that's a cube. You have a cube rendered onto an HTML canvas that's displayed. And now Canvas also isn't necessarily a ton of fun to work in without tools. It's totally doable, but you have to worry about redrawing the canvas, the position, the coordinates, the matrices. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the canvas that really, frankly, most people probably won't have the time to learn. So let's quickly show you what Three.js is even capable of doing. What we have here is the Three.js.org page, and you can see there's a ton of examples here, and I really love this page because it gives you a great idea of what's possible, some of which is very real world. See this GitHub cube that you can spin and have all these things? This was made with Three.js. And I mean, this page is very performant. It's GitHub's homepage, right? So that's neat that you can see this in the real world. Now, even more than just real world things like a cube that's in the background, you can create some pretty amazing things. Apple's using it in their iPhone's page. Right off the bat, we have GitHub and Apple using it. We also have NASA using it. So as you can see, like Three.js, yeah, look at this. This is what Three.js is capable of doing. Pretty amazing, right? So these kind of experiments and examples here are the type of things that you'll really get a good handle on for the possibility of being able to do. In fact, here's a game somebody made with a car, and you can knock over the letters and you can drag the car. This is amazing, right? This is done with Three.js. Could you make this with Svelte Cubed? Probably. Svelte Cubed is really just a wrapper around the Three.js library here. Either way, there's a ton of stuff to learn with Three.js, and this documentation is very good. Now, if you want to learn Three.js, I would recommend Three.js Fundamentals and the Three.js Journey. There's a lot of stuff here. This is a paid course, but you could see that you get a lot out of this course, right? I mean, look at the kind of stuff that they're showing in this course. It's incredible. Now, to get good at Svelte Cubed, you do have to get good at Three.js, but Svelte Cubed just makes it a little bit easier. So let's get back to learning here. So when we're working with 3D, what do we have? We have a renderer, which is going to be the canvas, essentially. We have a scene, and inside of our scene is the objects of our scene. We have a mesh, which can be considered a shape, right? Maybe it's a complex shape, maybe it's a simple shape, a cube, a sphere, whatever. Maybe it's a full-on complex created shape that's most likely created in a 3D application like Blender or Maya or something like that. You have groups where you can group things together and manipulate them and move them. A group can contain meshes and other things. You also have a light or mini lights, depending on what your system is set up. And now lights in 3D are really pretty tricky. You have to place them somewhere. You have to point them somewhere. You have to decide if they want to cast shadows. You have to choose what kind of light it is, whether that's a spotlight or whether that's ambient light or the type of light you would get from a window. You have a lot of options. And likewise, we have a camera, because within 3D, you have a 3D space. And just like you as a human being, you have your eyes to see things in 3D space. Thus, you need a camera to be pointed and looking at things in 3D space. Now, in addition to that, our meshes can also have geometry attached to them, whether that is like a cube, like I mentioned, and it could also have a material, whether that's shiny, whether it's bumpy, whether it is reflective, whether it is wrapped with an image, any kind of thing like that, or maybe what's called a bump map that gives things actual 3D texture or depth based on the image. So there's a lot that comes into a 3D scene. So if we're taking a look at a graph like this, it's really pretty interesting that Svelte Cubed can really make it feel more like working in this than just straight up JavaScript. So what does a basic Svelte Cubed project look like? What does the bare bones Svelte Cubed project look like? Well, let's check it out. So the very most basic Svelte cubed project I have pulled up here, let me close the sidebar, is a spinning purple cube. Now this spinning purple cube, if we ignore some of this stuff, all it is we're first bringing in Three.js, import everything from 3 as 3, import everything from SC, or as import everything from Svelte cubed as SC. Now you can ignore this motion and stuff like that because honestly, it's not important for this initial video or this initial talk. And if we move this over here, let me get rid of this terminal. What we could see here is that this looks a little cramped. I wonder if I can change the width. Either way, what we have here, if you look very closely at this, is we have a canvas. Now, this canvas is going to be essentially your HTML canvas, and it's also going to be the scene of your application or your 3D scene. It's the all-encompassing thing. And then within that scene, we have a mesh. Now, this mesh is this cube. Now, granted, this is a little bit intense. We have this rotation, we have this position, we have casting shadows. If we distill this down into all of the very most basic things that we might want with something like this, we could say it's a scale of 1, 1, 1. We could say that it's a mesh. It has a scale of 1, 1, 1, as in it is 1 by 1 by 1, making it a square or cube. Then we have the geometry that we attach to this mesh. And just like we saw in that chart, right, we have a mesh and we've attached a geometry to it. That geometry is a box geometry, which is what makes this look like a box instead of like let's say a sphere or a donut. We also have a material attached to this, and this mesh standard material is what defines how this thing looks. Now, we told it to just be the color purple, but if you don't give it a material, now this is a mesh standard material. There's a lot of different types of materials, all of which will be available in the Three.js documentation. And that's the one thing that's really interesting about Svelte Cube to me, is that when you're looking for, oh, I want to figure out what type of material I need for this, you don't have to hunt in Svelte Cube's documentation because Svelte Cubed is just implementing the Three.js API. So when we're looking for things like what type of material do I need, you're always heading to Three.js's documentation and using that stuff. And that way you don't have to wait for features to be added to Svelte Cubed. They're just in Three.js. Now we also have this camera, which is a perspective camera, and it's been given a position of back 10 on the x-axis, 2 on the y-axis, and 10 on the z-axis. We also have an ambient light. An ambient light lights up the scene uniformly, so it's not going to cast shadows. It's not going to make something give it depth. It's just going to be a generalized light. But then we also have this directional light, and the directional light is like it sounds. It's pointing at something, right? It has a little bit of intensity, which can go up to 1. It has a position that's pulled it back, put it up, and then pulled it over to the side here a little bit. And we're telling it to cast some shadows, which is how we get this shadow. Now, lastly, we have another mesh, which is a flat piece of geometry. You can see it's 3.plane geometry, and that's what causes this flat surface that this cube is on. If I zoom out far enough, we have some fog in here, but if I zoom out far enough, you can kind of see the edges of this thing, right? So this right here really encompasses everything that we just talked about here, just with HTML style elements, right? We have the scene, which is the canvas. We have the mesh. We have the perspective camera, the ambient light, the directional light, and the other plane. And what's neat about this is that we also dropped in a singular component called orbit controls. Now, what's so great about Svelte Cubed is that we don't have to code in orbit controls or being able to click and drag and make this interactive. All we have to do is drop in a single sc.orbit controls, and now we get to zoom in, zoom out, rotate around, hold shift to click and pan. It's amazing, right? It's pretty incredible. So what else makes this amazing that it works with Svelte? Well, the coolest thing, in my opinion, is that you can use Svelte. As in, we have, some of this stuff doesn't really matter in here. In fact, if I get rid of this stuff just to make it a little bit easier to read, what we added here is an input type range where we're binding the value of width and we're saying, hey, a minimum of 0.1, a max of 3, and a step of 0.1. And this is going to be the width slider. And this is just straight up HTML, right? This is HTML. It lives outside of the canvas, and we're positioning it absolutely on top of everything. But we have this, this slider, which is binding to a number value. That number value up top here is just defined as a singular 1 right here. And by default, it's not going to do anything. So what we do is we say, hey, we have our scale for our cube. If we want the width to be set via this width, we just change the value to width, like that. And what we do now is when we change the slider, you can see that the cube will be elongated or shrunk or squished down into a little thing here. And this is Svelte, right? I mean, this is really pretty neat. If you were to hook this up to any kind of events or anything like that, you could theoretically have this animating based on all sorts of stuff. Imagine you had like something that analyzed a song and was able to get the volume of a certain frequency at a specific second of a song. You could build a virtual light or a visualizer that was like bump 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 bump. You can do all sorts of stuff with this, right? This is just straight up Svelte, just like we know and love. It's so nice and easy to use. We're just binding the value here. Now, another cool thing that's going on in here is the fact that this thing is spinning. How is this thing spinning, you ask? What's going on there? Well, we're able to use a function that comes from Svelte Cubed called SC on frame. Now, on frame is going to fire on every single frame, allowing us to get smooth and performant animations like this that are inside of the canvas renderer. Now, all we're doing is taking a singular value, which starts at 0, and we are incrementing it by 0.01 on every frame. That's what causes this to spin like this. And if we were to change this 0.01 to even just 0.1, this thing would spin way more rapidly than it currently is. Okay, so let's keep it moving here. I want to talk about some more things, and this is really pretty simple example here. This is the showing you that, like in the previous example, in many examples that you see on the web, the canvas takes up the whole screen, right? And while this example isn't necessarily the most attractive thing in the entire world, this is going to show you that when you have an HTML canvas, you can do anything with that canvas as almost as if it was an image, right? So what we have in this example is I basically just have this button is going to just toggle a variable and then toggle it off after a couple of seconds. Nothing wild. What we do have is we're using Svelte Animation. Let me pull over the side to make this easier to read. So what we do have here is, just like we did before, we're kind of treating this thing like its own thing rather than this canvas taking up the entire screen. And we have a basic toggle on here, and we're using Svelte's own animations via Svelte Transition. And what we have is a canvas that's just dropped in the middle of this. And when we click this level up button, the cube just kind of flies up. Now, this is an amazing, I mean, it could be way cooler. The cube could spin, it could do all sorts of stuff. It could be not this basic cube. But what's cool about this is, actually, let me get rid of some of this stuff that's just taking up space here. What's cool about this is showing you that not only can we utilize 3D on the web, but we can utilize 3D on the web as if it were things like an image. And the main thing that we're doing here is we're just passing in to the canvas alpha, which means that it's not going to render a background if we don't have a background color set or a plane or anything like that. It's not going to render a background, and therefore it's going to sit alongside our text and our buttons and all that stuff. And like I said, this example could be cooler, but we have a cube in 3D space that's being animated with Svelte as if it were just a normal DOM element on the page. And we're doing that by just treating the canvas positioned absolutely and moving it, squishing it down to be the right size, and then having it be positioned relative. So it's really pretty neat, right? Now, next, what we have here is physics. Now, what about physics? Let me tell you, this is where things get really fun, because it is fun to create 3D shapes. It's fun to drop things into your canvas and just have them render. But what's even more fun is physics via Svelte Canon. Let me actually pop open to some of these examples here just to show you what's possible. Now, what's possible in here? Jumpy box. We got a jumpy box. It's jumping. We click this thing, a ball hits it. The ball hits it, it changes colors. This is done with Svelte Cubed. And you can get all the source code for this on the website. Pill Eater. This is a Pac-Man game. I'm controlling it with my keyboard. And it has momentum, right? I let go of the button and it's actually causing momentum. Look at that. Whoa. And this is the kind of stuff that you can make with Svelte Cubed. And this right here, relatively easy compared to what it would be like in 3JS. I could play around with these examples all stinking day. These things are just so super cool. We have a ball that's falling. It just falls. We have a box on a spring here. I think this just does its thing. The bridge. Look at that. Now this is using, essentially, it's a wrapper around Canon ES, just the same way Svelte Cubed is. So don't worry about this stuff maybe not being supported because Canon ES is a mature library, as is 3JS. And now what we can do is we can utilize these things in the same declarative manner that we did before, just with Svelte Cubed. It's really stinking cool, and honestly, I'm just a huge fan of this stuff. I'm shocked at how awesome it is. Now, let's actually dive into just the code for these really quick. In fact, we'll just do we'll just do the minimal example here. So what's cool about this is that just the same way Svelte Cubed is. So what we have here is we have Canon ES, which is just the core library, the same way that 3JS is to Svelte Cubed. And then PE, you see it's importing from lib, but this is because it's the same package. Typically, you would import this from the Svelte Canon library. And what we're doing here is largely we're creating a world with gravity. We're saying this world, this canvas has gravity. We have a body that has mass, and then we have the sphere, and this all attaches to a mesh and a canvas. So the thing that's most important here is that we bind the body that we created to a position right here, and then we just drop those position coordinates into the mesh itself, and then the physics is therefore then attached to the 3D, allowing us to get all of these awesome features. Let me tell you, this is 30 lines of code. 30 lines of code, and 4 of those lines is for metadata, and that creates, I'll show you which example, that creates the minimal example. That creates this. It's a world with gravity and has a sphere falling down, less than 25 lines of code, 26 lines of code. Incredible stuff. And let me tell you, I've been working in Svelte Cube now for a couple months, and it feels like this all the time. I cannot believe what I'm able to accomplish with such little code. Okay? So it's a declarative physics engine for Svelte Cubed. This is one of my favorite packages and favorite libraries to use in coordination with Svelte Cubed, and it feels really good. So as always, thank you for watching. My name is Scott Tolinski. Once more, you can check out more. We have a new course on Svelte Cubed at Level Up Tutorials. I recently made this course, and what we cover in this is all sorts of amazing examples, from using the physics engine to creating basic shapes, but also understanding how light works, how the canvas works, how the cameras work, and different things within Svelte 3D. Again, this is one of my favorite courses that I've made in some time. We have maybe like 30 some lessons on all sorts of stuff. We even show you how to extrude text and SVGs in 3D, the same type of thing that you see on the Svelte Cubed homepage. Now, if you don't want to take my course and you just want to learn Svelte Cubed, here's what you do. You head to svelte-cube.vercel.app. The link is in the slides here, and you do the Getting Started. Getting Started will take you all the way from here, which is just a basic 3D cube. It will take you all the way into having a rotating 3D cube with shadows, sliders, and a plane geometry. Again, this is so stinking cool. Now, these docs, they are still filled with to-dos. But the one major thing that you need to know when working with Svelte Cubed and trying to learn this stuff is whenever you see something like an ambient light or a directional light or anything like that, that you know that you can always head to 3JS's documentation, head to documentation, and just look at all of this stuff. Anything you could possibly want is in here. And it's really pretty simple if you take a look at this and say, all right, I want a mesh standard material. Okay. And here's the sliders. Here's kind of maybe what I want it to look like, whatever. I can read all about mesh standard material. I can learn all about its properties. And these all map one-to-one with what the props are in these Svelte cubed components. So just experiment. It's 3D. Could it be any more fun than that? This is the type of stuff that's going to make you stand out, make your resume stand out when you're looking for jobs. You want to be the developer that can do really cool 3D stuff? This is the place to be. So thank you so much for watching. Again, leveluptutorials.com. I have a coupon for today only. It's Siren, Siren. You'll get 30% off the yearly subscription, and we have new courses every single month and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of Svelte content coming up. Thank you so much for watching. And if you want more of this stuff, we're going to be doing a live stream on Svelte Cubed today on Level Up Tutorials YouTube channel. So head on over to the Level Up Tutorials YouTube channel, and I'm going to be talking with Caitlin Bloom all about this new course that we're dropping. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Hello, how did it go?
Hey.
So exciting.
Can you hear me okay?
I think we can, yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. So that was incredible. Like other people were saying they weren't aware it was as mature as that.
Yeah. I think that's the benefit of it being just a wrapper over 3JS, is that you're not waiting on Svelte Cubed for a lot of stuff. You're just getting to use the tools that have existed for so long in 3.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, actually, I did see one question that just came up. What program to use for creating models
Yeah.
to import into SE?
3D is kind of tough. I personally use Blender, but I'm not great at it. So Blender is a good option because it's free, and because it's free, you're not throwing down a bunch of cash. But it's also like the type of thing that there's a huge community around. So if you're looking for Blender tutorials on YouTube, they're going to be very plentiful. And the biggest limitation into building things to create models in Blender is just how difficult 3D can be in general to work in, especially when you're first getting started. There's a handful of concepts that feel uncomfortable to work in, but you get used to it.
That's what I've heard about Blender too, is there's just a definite learning curve with anything 3D. And I think once you grasp those concepts, it becomes easier. But I've seen some pretty powerful things come out of Blender too.
Totally. Yeah, actually, it's funny. I took 3D in college, and so I have a bit of a background there, especially in Blender. But I'm no pro by any means, and I was able to create a fun little star that's rounded off for the course, and we were able to import that and have it be used in Svelte. So we do that in the course where we don't show you creating the model in Blender because I think that would probably be a disaster, me trying to teach Blender. But we do show you how you can utilize meshes that are coming in from a 3D model from elsewhere.
That's awesome. And you do have the new course on Level Up Tutorials teaching everything about Svelte in 3D. And I saw that you created a promo code just for today. And thank you so much for doing that. It was Siren, right?
Yeah.
Siren. If anyone wants to go get some money off Level Up Tutorials, totally worth it. I've been a subscriber for a while. I love it. We've got another question coming in here. What use cases would you see for this for web developers?
Yeah, the use cases are going to be, if you go through the examples on 3JS, what you end up seeing a lot of is backgrounds, right? You have a 3D background that one specifically in the GitHub. It's a background, but it's interactive and it's just kind of neat, right? It's kind of like, ooh, that's cool kind of stuff. But I think over the next 2 to 3 years, what we're going to be seeing is this huge influx of VR and AR content. And that's something that 3JS can do. So for 3JS to do virtual reality it's actually really not that difficult. So, I mean, it's built into it. So what's so neat about that is that in the future, when we have all of these 3D experiences that you're seeing for whether it is the Oculus Quest or whatever Valve may come out with, or Apple, whatever they may come out with, you're going to have these experiences that are built with, could be built with web tech or are built with web tech. That you're going to be able to build some really cool stuff. And I personally, I have a VR headset. I have the Oculus Quest, the first one, and it's really neat to even just go in there and watch some videos. Like I'll go in and even put it on my kid's head, and he will look at the mountains and look around and get to see some animals and stuff in the mountains. And that's the kind of stuff you could even build with this kind of technology in 3JS. So the use case right now is it's fun stuff. It's kind of, you know, it's dressing to the site, but in reality, I think you're going to be seeing this just a little bit more and more every single year.
Yeah. Right now, it just seems like it's fun little things that you can do to dress up your site, like you said. But
Yeah.
that it's really incredible that you can use that for VR. I'm excited to see that. And Ghost popped in the chat to say with building a game or something with Tori or Electron.
Yeah, and what's so great about that, we didn't get too into it in the talk, but in that Svelte canon library, there are events, collision events. This item hit this item. I think I may have froze there. Oh, there we go. But you do end up having like actual events, like you could fire Svelte events. So let's say you had that Pac-Man game and you wanted to have a counter each time the Pac-Man ate one of those balls. You could easily do that, and you're doing so with the same kind of API that we do within Svelte on collision, whatever, I forget what the event's called, but on this, do that kind of thing. And building a game with this is something that I am personally definitely looking into, because that's the kind of thing I would want to do for fun. Another use case that I forgot to bring up with the last question would be augmented reality stuff. I think on the web is going to be big. Specifically, even like non-tech people, like my wife was trying to pick out like a picture the other day from Target, and she was on Target's website, or she was on Target's app, and it said, see this in your home. You click see it in your home, you hold up your phone, it uses the camera, you can place it on your wall. That's very much the type of experience that I personally would love to see more of on the web. And I think we're getting there. So this 3D world, 3D stuff that we're going to be seeing on the web is going to be everywhere very soon.
I agree with that. That's what I was going to say, is Amazon does that too for some of their items, where you can just place it and see it in your room in real time, and you can see what that space looks like with that thing in there. Is just crazy to me.
Yeah, totally.
We've got time for a couple more questions here. We've got, what about WASM or Rust for 3D graphics?
Yeah, I would imagine at some point there could be some like WASM based libraries for 3D graphics. At the end of the day, it's going to be using WebGL, because WebGL I think is C++ or something. WebGL is an OpenGL platform, and it's pretty much that's going to be the base of everything. So whether or not the library is 3JS that's communicating with WebGL, or whether or not it is like a Rust or a WASM, anything that's communicating with 3JS, I think that's to remain to be seen. But 3JS is super mature. There's a big community there for it. So I don't necessarily think that like the performance right now is the bottleneck necessarily. I think maybe more or less the type of experiences that we're building on the web are still yet to be seen. What's like where it could go. So yeah, it could get there, but 3JS again is just implementing WebGL. So I doubt there's going to be anything other than WebGL to do the 3D rendering itself.
And it's native to the web. I feel like everything right now is like, let's jump to WASM, let's jump to Rust and make it more performant. But it's just, the web is good. Like we have a lot of good things. Somebody else said that it's just a great time to be a web developer right now. It really is.
It's endlessly cool stuff. And and that's even like the thing that when I'm working on this stuff or experimenting with it, you're just like your wheels get turning to like the types of experiences that you could create with it. And me personally, I don't know. I'm the type of person who would look at some of this tech and just be like, oh man, if I had the free time, I would love to create a game or create an AR experience or really dive deep into this VR stuff within it. I mean, there's possibilities are endless right now.
Someone else just brought up a really good point that I kind of wanted to address too, is being accessible. Is that a challenge with these 3D things and models? Like, how are they accessible to users?
Yeah. Well, these aren't the type of experiences that you would be building to necessarily be accessible. Like that's again a lot of why what you're seeing right now is just window dressing or it's just these
Mhm.
backgrounds because those things don't necessarily have to be accessible because they're not impacting the design in any sort of way that would make it inaccessible. But at the end of the day, let's say we're talking VR or AR or anything like that, there's going to be kind of an inherent boundary there where like vision impaired people are most likely going to have lots of issues with that until
Mhm.
whatever the technology there can advance to assist in some sort of way. But yeah, I don't think building your website in this is maybe necessarily a great idea without some sort of a fallback for screen readers and whatever. I mean, maybe you would have some sort of an alternate rendering engine where it would show non 3D for people who needed a screen reader. So yeah, I don't know about building just a straight up whole on application in this, but definitely for just little niceties here and there or whatever for some users would be
That makes a lot of
progressively
sense.
enhanced. Yeah.
And then maybe like in prefers reduced motion, like throwing some things that would be a different style sheet or something so it would make it more accessible to the users.
Yeah, or just revert to straight up HTML entirely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. That was an amazing talk. I feel like I learned a lot about 3JS and about Svelte Cubed, which is that wrapper around 3JS for Svelte. And I'm very excited to try it out and to do your course.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. I,
Yeah.
I love talking about this stuff. It's just like getting to play around. It's like a
It
playground.
is.
Yeah.
It is like a playground of incredible things, and it's so much fun. We are doing Siren streams every couple of weeks. I have Kellen Mace coming on March 16th to talk about headless WordPress, and that will, I think, be the next time that you see us. And thank you so much, and we will see all of you later.
Thank you.
Bye. Peace.
Peace.